I'm getting a little punch drunk. I know this is crazy. I know that this is not the way that we're used to doing school, but this is it for the next couple months. And thank you guys for putting in the effort. It's very important that we keep our routines the same, that we continue to learn, whether it be online or together at school, and this is our option, right? We're doing this online, so we're going to all try this together. We're doing the best we can. Super proud of you guys for you know, being strong and getting through this. So here we go. Welcome to the quarantine classroom. Hey. First of all, I wanted to address Google Hangouts. Alright, so some of you guys have figured it out, some of you guys haven't. I just recently sent a link to all your Google Classrooms. It says 403 error, but that doesn't really stop you from connecting, so use the link if necessary if you can't figure out how to get on Google Classrooms. Or sorry, Google Hangouts, because that's where we'll be doing some discussions. And you guys can send me questions there, or you can send me questions on Google Classroom. You guys have seemed to have figured that out pretty well. For those of you who have joined, still have a lot of you that haven't. So hopefully if you're watching this video and you haven't done anything like turned in your schedule, which was assignment number 1, or worked on assignment number 2, which is DNA replication and mutation, hopefully you'll get that done. The videos that I'm going to be sending you are going to be hopefully a couple a week. It's really the only way that I can teach and supplement what resources I'm giving you guys and expecting you to learn the information online. So I know it's going to be tough, but ask as many questions as you want, contact me as often as you want, etc., etc. Alright, so the first assignment was a daily schedule, right? With that, I want you to tell me every weekday, obviously not the weekends or the days that you're not expected to be at school, but every weekday, every school day, what is your routine going to be? Are you going to wake up, eat breakfast, do a little exercise, then start schoolwork, or are you going to wake up, have breakfast, help your family with their business or with their work or cleaning, and then do schoolwork later in the afternoon from 3 to 6? What is your plan for schoolwork? And I would definitely say that our expectations as a school is to be probably 4 to 6 hours of schoolwork every day. Sounds like a lot. You know, that depends on how much you can do in a certain amount of time, how focused you can remain, etc. So please do as much work as you can each and every day, and that will reduce the amount that you have to do towards the end of the quarter. Now, I have added a new Aries gradebook in. It's quarter 4. We just started quarter 4 today. And your first assignment is that daily schedule that I've given you guys. If you haven't turned it in yet, turn it in and you will get credit for it. The second assignment is the DNA replication and mutation assignment. So let's talk about DNA replication and mutation. Okay, so let me grab my pens here and we'll do some drawings. Alright, so you guys remember that DNA is what holds all of our genetic information, right? DNA is our instruction manual. It is the blueprints of our bodies, right? And what DNA codes for is proteins that are produced within the cell, okay? So the proteins that are produced are determined by your genes, and your genes are a segment of your DNA. So if we have our DNA, right? And let's say this DNA goes off into a long section of DNA which gets coiled up into our chromosomes, right? There's our chromosome, and our DNA is a section of that. And then within the DNA, are all these connections of nucleotides. Oop, that pen's done. Toss that puppy. All these connections of nucleotides, right? And if we have a section of DNA, let's say it's this section of DNA, right here, that is a gene, right? You remember that genes hold the code for a trait, okay? So this gene right here might determine whether you have curly or straight hair, or brown or blue eyes, or whatever trait you can decide on, okay? So if we do a close-up look at this DNA, we notice that if we take this double helix structure and we straighten it out, we have, well, I'll do it color-coded so it looks the same. We have what appears to be a ladder or a zipper, right? And then we have these connections. And I am going to differentiate the colors because there are different nucleotides that make those connections happen. So if you remember, green goes with orange, and let's say we'll do two other colors here too. We'll say that, let's see, I've got red and brown. We'll say brown goes with red. Okay? And these nucleotides are what determine your traits. Oh, let's put one in here too, because that looks a little bit barren. Okay? These nucleotides are what determine your traits. It's the order of these nucleotides that determines your traits, right? So if you look at this side here, and we looked at the order goes green, brown, orange, brown, green, red, red, green, brown, orange. Let's say that this determines that you have curly hair. Okay? So we've taken our chromosome, stretched out a piece of the DNA, taken a section of that DNA, which we call a gene, and we've straightened it out over here, and we've looked at the nucleotides. Now, nucleotides, of course, are on both sides of the DNA, right? So we've looked at the nucleotides, and we've looked at their order. Remember, we have adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine are the 4 different types of nucleotides. 4 types. A, C, G, and T. And then the order of these nucleotides determines what trait we have. Okay? So in this case, we've ordered for curly hair. Right? Now, what happens with mutation? Okay? So we first have to talk about DNA replication, right? Now here we have our DNA, but we need to make a new cell. And the new cell needs to have DNA also. So the old cell isn't just going to give its DNA to the new cell, because then it wouldn't know what to do and it wouldn't be a cell anymore, right? So the old cell needs to make a copy of its DNA. It needs to replicate. Okay? So we're going to talk about that. All right. So as your DNA comes along, it splits and begins to make a copy, right? So as it splits, it's got its nucleotide order. Boom, 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 boom. And let's just say here and here. got our brown. And then we've got our orange, right? Sorry about the timing on this. I'm doing the best I can. There, okay? There we have a nucleotide order, and we need to make a copy. So, this exact order of nucleotides needs to be duplicated over on this side here. So we would have a free-floating nucleotides would attach themselves and make new copies of DNA. Okay? And they would just fill in as such. I'm not going to do the order because we went through this in class, and you guys remember that. But all of these will match all of these. Boom, 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 boom. And then we have an exact copy of DNA. So these are exact replicas. And that's why they call it replication, right? Because you're making exact replication of DNA. We have the same DNA sequence and the same DNA sequence. And why is that important? Because if we have different sequences, then our DNA, like the genes for curly hair, etc., are going to change. Okay, so if we didn't have the same here as the same here, then you would have different traits. All of a sudden, your new cell would think that you're a, instead of a 6 foot tall, let's say brown-haired girl with small feet and long fingers, your DNA might think you're a 5'2" tall girl with blonde hair, large feet, and let's say no hands at all, right? Maybe it lost the gene for making your hands because its code is different, okay? So your code in every DNA replication, every cell needs to be exactly the same so you can be the same person. And if that code changes, then your genes change, which makes your traits change. All right, hopefully we're on par here because we've gone through this. Now, what happens when our DNA is replicating, but a mistake occurs? That is called mutation, right? Mutation is not always bad, but it does cause change. Mutation is when something changes. A change in your DNA. All right? So as DNA is replicating, right, there's this huge process going on, and mistakes can be made. And there are ways that the cell can repair those mistakes, but let's just focus on what happens when the mistakes aren't repaired, right? Well, there's 3 types. There is 3 types. First of all, we have substitution. Then we have deletion. And then we have insertion. Substitution, as it sounds like, is when something is substituted for another. Deletion is what it sounds like. It's when a nucleotide, well, let's start with substitution again and use the word nucleotide. When substitution occurs, a nucleotide is substituted for a different nucleotide, which could cause a change, right? That's a mutation. Deletion is when a nucleotide disappears or is deleted from the sequence, which would cause a different difference in your DNA, which would cause a mutation. And then insertion is when we put a nucleotide